We're going to create a new content type for a particular sort of document, and that document is going to be called a budget. And the content type has nothing to do with file type. The content type says that if you're saving a budget, we want some particular metadata attached to that budget. Here we go. We're going to choose site settings. And if we're not at the very top of our site, we'll want to click to go to the top level site settings, because what we want to see is this web designer gallery section. And in here, we have site content types. So I'm going to create these at the site level. There are existing content types that are already built in. Take a look. There are lots of them. Here's our document content type. Here's an image content type, a picture content type, a wiki page content type, and so on. If you scroll down, a lot of these will look familiar because we've been working with them. And as you scroll down, you can also create your own custom list content types, not just document content types. Here are the list content types. We have announcements and comments. We have issues, which we've used, and schedule, and so on. Let's go ahead and create a new content type. At the very top, there's a link that says Create. We'll give SharePoint a minute to catch up with us, saying, you haven't asked me to do this before. It says, what's the name? This is going to be a budget document, and I can offer a description here. I can say a budget document created in any particular application. Now it says, what are you going to base this on? There is not a choice here that says new. We don't get to generate new content types from nothing. We're going to base every content type we create on a content type that already exists. So what I want to know is, what is this kind of thing I'm creating? And we're actually creating a document content type. We know it's a document. And the description says, create a new basic page. The parent content type, it's document. So we have document content types, and the parent content type is just a pure document. This will create a new document. And then we have the ability to put this in a group. When I'm being asked about a group, I'm being asked, where's this content type going to live? Now, if I'm going to create a lot of content types, or if I'm in a large organization where I have a knowledge manager, I might want to have a conversation at this point about where it would be wise for me to keep them. Do I want to keep the content types that we create for our organization in new groups, or do I want to keep them here? But if we're not going to create many content types, I can say, well, it's one of the document content types. I'm just going to leave it there. And it will show up there on the list when I look for content types. I'm going to click OK. Now this is my site content type, and here are my settings. And all of this has actually been given to me from the parent content type I chose, which was document. So it's a budget document created in any application based on document. And its settings have a name, a description, and a group, which we just set, some advanced settings, and some workflow settings. And then we have columns. So I can add new columns, my metadata right here, either from existing built-in site columns or from a new site column that I'm going to create. Let's take a look at the existing site columns for just a minute. And we have lots of groups, but let's look at the ones that have to do with documents. So let's look at our core document columns. Author, category, comments, coverage, date, picture taken, keywords, publisher, and so on. These are all items that come to us from Microsoft. These are all of the types of site columns that Microsoft built in. And if we had created any custom columns, they'd already be here. So we might say, well, we always want to include, for example, a category, or we always want to include a publisher. And if we wanted to do that, if what we had here met our needs exactly, we could go ahead and click Add, and we could use this. So if we take a look, we'll actually find on this list some custom columns, some document and record management columns, and we might find exactly what we're looking for here. I also see a reports group that has some other choices. So it has, for example, an owner who owns this document. And I could say, that'll work. So I'm going to go ahead and add it. Now it says, do we want to update all content types inheriting from this type? What this says is, if I was in the middle of changing this and I had already based another content type on this, would I want it to automatically update it? Do I want to continue inheritance? It's never a bad idea to say yes here. If I had already created a new content type based on our budget document content type, then I definitely want to update it. In this case, I know I haven't, so I can just say no. But most of the time, yes is a really good choice because I don't want to accidentally break inheritance. But it warns me that this could take a long time because it's going to go and check and see if any content types are out there that relate to this. So this time, I'm going to simply say no. I have my owner added, and I'm going to say okay. So now when I take a look at my budget document, it has a title and it has an owner, and I can add something else from existing site columns if I want to. And so what I want to do is I actually want to know what fiscal year a budget is for. We don't have that already. It wasn't on any of the lists. Trust me, I've looked. So I'm going to add a new site column, and I'm going to call this fiscal year. And it's going to be a single line of text. Now you might say, why don't I make it a number? Because if I do, it will from time to time try to format it with a comma in the thousands place. And since we're well past the year 1000, that will annoy me. So I'd like to have some choices though. Let's go ahead and do that. Rather than having people type, let's go ahead and give them some choices to choose from. Now I'm going to have to enter some reasonable number of years. We want to put this someplace in columns. I can put it in a set of columns that exists already, but SharePoint knows this column doesn't exist. I can create it in custom columns. If I'm going to create a lot of content types in the financial area, I might want to create a new group that's called custom financial columns. But we'll just put it in custom columns. We're going to add a brief description that this is the fiscal year for a financial document. Might wonder why I don't say budget. Well, because I might want to use this for other types of financial documents. I'm going to require that this contains information. Nah, we're okay right now. I can do that later. When I use this content type, I can enforce that. I'm going to say that we're going to enter a group of years. And if I have to go back historically to data, I need to know what I'm going to use this for. Perhaps I need to start with the year 2000 and then work my way through 2001, 2002, 2003, and so on. I could copy and paste this from someplace else if I wanted to. And I'll keep adding numbers. Clearly, I want to make sure that I have enough. But remember that you probably have a standard in your organization for how many years out you create lists like this. So if the standard is that we're going to review them in every decade in the year that ends with a 7, then we'd go out to 2017, for example. I'm going to display choices with a drop-down menu because they're going to choose only one. Fill in choices. Nope, we have to use the choices that are there. I don't want to have a default value, so I'll remove it. And do I want to update all content types inheriting from this type? It's not being used before now, so I'm just going to say no and click OK. So now I have title, owner, and fiscal year. Remember also that we wanted to add scope, but I think we have a feel for how this is all going to work. So I have my content type, and it's looking good. So now what I want to do is I actually want to use this content type. It already exists. Everything's fine. There's nothing else to save here. I can come back here and delete this. I can assign workflow settings based on a content type. And this is wicked cool because what I can do is I can have in a document library one workflow that's applied to budgets and a totally different workflow that's applied to proposals or applied to plans. So that's great. Let's go ahead then and go back to our document library. Let's say we want to create a brand new library for our finance documents. We'd probably have an entire website for it, but let's just go ahead and start from scratch. Let's go to Site Contents. Let's add an app. We're going to add a document library, and we're going to call it Finance Docs or Fin Docs, and we'll go back then and change that. We know how to clean it up, but we'll have a nice short little URL, and let's go ahead and pop this open. Let's click on the Library tab, and let's go to our settings for our library. If you look here, you're not going to find anything that says content type. This is a document library. So how in the world are we going to connect a content type here? This you just have to know. You're going to click Advanced Settings. And it asks whether we should allow the management of content types. And yes, I want to do that. There's nothing else to change here. Go ahead and click OK. Because when we do, we get a new section in the middle of the page that wasn't there before. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to add from existing content types. And if I go to my document content types, there's my budget document that I created, and I can click Add. So now budget documents are allowed in this library. I'm going to say OK, and let's go back to our library. And now when someone says File, New Document, they can create a new document, or they can create a new budget document. Isn't that great? Now, the other thing I can do is I can change the order in which these appear because I would like budget document to be first. So let's go back to our library tab, click our library settings, and the other choice here is what's called button order. So I'm going to change the button order, and I'm going to say I want budget document to be first. And if I only want to allow budget documents here, I just turn regular documents off. I can create content types for all of the different types of documents that we were talking about earlier, and I can add them all here. If I turn this off, we can only create budget documents now. But I'm going to allow both. And again, if I take a look and I say we're going to create a new document, one of the types of documents is a budget document. I'm going to say I want to create a new document. It'll fire up Microsoft Word in this case because that's the template that's attached here. And notice that I have a space for a title that's required, an owner, and the owner actually is looking for a person. That's interesting. And a fiscal year from my drop-down list. So this owner, who needs to be a person, is different than what I had actually hoped for. I wanted an owner to be a department. And so what I'm going to need to do is go back and modify this content type and add a column that's probably like department owner that doesn't already exist that I can use. Once you begin using content types, you're going to realize how much more we can hang on the framework of content. Because I can have a document library that allows me to store two different kinds of things, email messages and documents. When I drag an email message and save it here, it'll provide information about who it's to and from because that's a built-in content type. Content types are amazing because they take the very best of SharePoint, metadata, and document management, and seamlessly empower regular users to be able to save documents that then can behave in different ways and have different types of metadata. I hope you explore and utilize content types because this is one of the most powerful features of Microsoft SharePoint.